Welcome to Revenue Mind, where revenue leaders get real about mental health. I'm Julie. Stick around for honest stories, practical insights, and why well-being is the real bottom line. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revenue Mind, a podcast where revenue leaders talk all things mental health. I'm Julie, your host, and with us is Meghann. Hey, Meghann.
Hi there.
So good to have you. I know we were chatting right before this, but super excited to quote unquote meet you, even though you're a face on a screen, but close enough.
I honestly feel in 2025, especially since 2020, realistically, when so many of us were scattered all over the world, I remember when it was weird to me that I would meet these amazing people on LinkedIn and feel so connected to them. I have friends. One of my best friends is Leslie Vanetz, and I met her through LinkedIn. I've met her in person several times now, but yeah, I have these deep friendships. So it's great meeting you and putting a face to the name.
Yeah, you too. Oh, Leslie's awesome. She was such a when I
Yeah,
interviewed her, I was like, "You're such a badass."
she
Oh my
is.
god.
She's,
Yeah,
like,
she really is.
absolutely badass.
I can definitely see where you guys are friends, and that is a compliment.
Yeah. All of our LinkedIn friends, the best.
Of course. Cool. So I typically start with, and I think you're gonna have an interesting answer to this.
Mhm.
What makes you you?
Ooh, so that's actually a really beautiful question because I started working with a branding coach, earlier this year. I share a lot about it on my LinkedIn. And I post a lot about burnout. I post a lot about what I thought made me me, which was, I would say prior to hitting burnout was I was a hard worker. I'd work harder than anyone else. I think I could tell you a lot of things like, oh, I see patterns really easily that other people don't see. But after working with a branding coach, he was like, "Why, Meg, you read tarot, you're so cool, and you don't see any of that on your LinkedIn." So I started calling myself that sales witch on LinkedIn almost a year ago, and I felt when he suggested that, I was like, "You're so silly. I am not doing that. Like, absolutely not." But yeah, no, I dyed my hair purple and call myself that sales witch, and I post regularly about yes, like the journey with healing and spirituality and how it impacts my sales and just being able to show that side of it. Ironically, I did like, that part of me that I was hiding previously, I would answer now today is truly what makes me me. I think also just having, like, such deep intuition, so, like, connection to my body, connection to my, and, like, also all of the pain and all of the feelings that a lot of us suppress has actually made me a lot better salesperson, a lot better coach, a lot better, I think, like friend, person to be around. And I think ironically, it's what people recognize most about me now.
I love that. Quick question. How did you get to the sales witch? I'm so interested. I know you work with the branding coach,
Yeah.
but, like, how did you arrive at that?
Yeah. So, long story short, I have been in sales since I was 16 years old. My very first job was, yeah, I lived in St. Augustine, Florida. It's a very small beach town. And I was deciding what I wanted to have as a high school job. And I really just wanted discounts on bathing suits. So I worked at a bathing suit store and it was really cool because for the women that are listening, a lot of times we don't always have bodies that just fit like a medium and a medium, bottom and top pair. So I worked at a specialty suit shop that worked with like different body types and it was amazing sales experience because I learned that you have like 5 bathing suits that women will try on before tears might be involved. So, you talk about like losing a deal or like buyers like not wanting to move forward. If you add tears, it's a lot more high pressure. And so I worked in a lot of different types of sales. I worked as a leasing agent, paying my way through college. I worked in retail for years. Then I got into tech after college. I was like, okay, I have a sociology degree. I don't really want to become a sociologist. I'm done with the research, but I like bring that every day to what I do in sales. So I started in payroll sales. I have a lot of clients in payroll right now, but I was okay in sales, but I'm, like, not okay being okay. So I actually invested in my own training. I went to Sandler Sales Training. Shout out to my amazing trainers. But I worked with them for 2 years. Like the very first year, I went from being a mediocre salesperson to being high, like top performance. I went to President's Club, etc. Good news, I, like, drove a ton more revenue for the organization. Bad news, I, like, fell in love with the training side. So, I was interviewing in New York City, because I was looking to make a move and was interviewing for sales roles. And one of the companies was like, "Hey, we actually see you have some training experience. Would you wanna, like, do training full time?" I'm like, "What? That's a role? What?" So, since then, I've been an inside trainer, so, like, kinda like the first person that people hire in terms of, like, building out their training team, usually when they wanna go from, "Okay, we're seeing good results, but we want to really level up." So, like, we wanna bring in, some of the best frameworks, we wanna incorporate onboarding, we want to level up every single seller. And then I was able to start my own company, and what I did was, I honestly took just, like, the easiest thing to sell, which was medic training. So I was a medic trainer for years, and now I'm actually transitioning even more so into coaching top salespeople through the same journey that I've had, which is helping them realize, like, okay, I'm at top levels of performance. Why don't I feel fulfilled? Or like, when is it going to get easier? Because I don't think that I can keep doing this level of work for longer. And like, you kind of see those rewards diminishing where it's like, I'm doing the same amount of work but it's just not working as well anymore. So, I'm super passionate about that side of it and really just helping the people and teams find, yes, incredible results. I actually have very strong opinions that, selling from a more secure, regulated space allows more like better results, but also helping people find more fulfillment, better working relationships with their teams, more sustainability as well, which I think like should be a topic that more teams talk about, but I think it's a lot easier to add activity than strategy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, that's first off, that's amazing. I love that. Something that you said stuck with me was that it's okay not to be okay. I truly wholeheartedly agree with that. And you also mentioned that a lot of us suppress our, our trauma, our pain, our insert here. And
Mhm.
I think it becomes the never enough mentality. Like it's never going to be good enough because, at least for me, I pushed myself to the point because I didn't want to think about anything.
Mhm.
Like I didn't want to think about the pain, the trauma, the whatever was happening in my life. So I just worked until I broke. So I
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting because when I use the words burnout in my content, it doesn't usually resonate with people before that breaking point. And it's either people like, "I'm not burnt out, I'm totally fine." I'm like, "Okay, cool, sure." And of course, some people aren't burnt out, but I did not think that I was burning out until I hit it, and it was like a moment, I'll talk about that in a moment, but, like, the people that do resonate with burnout are the people who've had those breaking points, And for me, what that looked like, I thought that I knew what burnout was. I think that I thought that it was just, like, feeling really exhausted for months. And when you talk to people who have, like, truly hit burnout, not just approached it, for me, it was literally a moment I remember the exact moment where I was. I was in my bedroom, and I was about to turn off the lights to just take a nap because I, like, did not take naps. So I'm not like a I was not a napper, but I was so overwhelmed that I just, like, was about to turn off the light, and it was like my brain shut down, but, like, my brain turned off the light. Everything, all the concerns, all of the worries, all of the stress, all of the anxieties, all of the ambitions drained, and it was like my mind felt clear in a weird way, but it also I remember telling one of, the coaches I was working with at the point she was actually just a friend, not a coach yet. So I was not investing in myself. I did everything myself, but I told her, I was like, "I feel like I'm at the bottom of the ocean with the entire weight of the world on top of me, and everything every even, like, time seemed to be moving slower. I couldn't see clearly. Everything was just like I was, like, opening my eyes underwater. Even, like, noises and everything were just muted. And I had to take time off of work. I had to, like, take a leave of absence. And they understood. I was like, "Hey, I'm burned out." And they're like, "Girl, take time off." And, like, that was a red flag even, like, they're seeing something that I wasn't. But, yeah, it was really devastating. And I know you have your own story, like, what did it look like for you, that moment?
So, I guess my story,
Or, like, what did burnout feel like for you?
it's always tightness in my chest. It's always
Ooh,
like this. And I really resonated with you when you've said it was almost like everything froze. That reminded me of, I forget, I always screw it up. Analysis paralysis, paralysis analysis. It's one of the 2.
analysis paralysis, I think.
Thank you.
I'm making
I can
note.
never remember. Yeah. But, like, I tend to I just yeah, I kinda do the same thing. I kinda freeze, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Holy shit, I have a lot going on." Like, when I start just kinda I'm open about it, like, I'm in therapy and stuff, and when I start listing all the things that I'm doing, I'm like, "Holy shit, I'm surprised I'm still standing." It's just
No.
it's crazy, but I think what I learned with burnout is to not have in a weird way, like, lowering your expectations, but also raising your expectations with how you treat yourself, I think is how I would put it.
Yeah, and honestly, like, how we treat ourselves is so interesting because I think in tech, it's a lot of very toxic behaviors are extremely normalized or glorified, such as like complete sacrifice of everything in your life, personal life, boundaries, even just, like, time, like, people treat like, act like they own your time, and you also, like, have to sacrifice your focus. People are like, "Oh, I saw that you have 2 hours free today." I was like, No, those are not free hours, those are deep work hours. There's a difference, but I think it's also really interesting, like, a lot of people are just so disconnected, like, from it. We're so disconnected from our bodies. Can I play 2 things back to you from what you shared? So you said that, like, you feel it in your chest, like a tightening here. Do you feel anywhere else in your body when you feel overwhelmed, burnout, etcetera?
Um, well, I do have TMJ, but I've had that since I was 16, so that's like a
Mm.
whole 'nother can of worms, like, right here. So it's definitely my
Yeah. So
jaw.
maybe even, like, a tightening, like, with your, like,
Tightening
jaw
my jaw
issues.
and tightening my chest, yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually really interesting when you study even like somatic processing, and
Mhm.
I work a lot with the chakra system. Even I am launching a new offering, which is aura photography, where you put your hands on sensors, it captures biometric data, and then turns that into a visual photo. So it turns it into a visual with colors, and it's actually mapped to the chakra system. But how everyone can use that, I like kind of a fun intro question I use for people, is like, where do you feel it in your body when you're stressed? Because I would say like most of the time it's two, actually probably all three places. So in your chest area, this is your heart chakra. And if you feel constant, this can a lot of people feel like in their shoulders, like tightness or like clenching. If you have to get massages all the time, like weekly, like I did, and I was like, oh, I'm just having shoulder issues. Well, maybe it's because you're holding tension, aka stress, in that area. And by knowing where, it's really interesting. So, like, your heart chakra can be related to feelings of self worth. So, for example, I noticed that I would tense up when I started my company, I would tense up every time a client would email me. I had this extreme weird thing. I was like, they're going to be asking for their money back. They're going to be angry. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. And it was all that self worth. I was like, I don't feel worthy. I feel scared. I feel like I'm not good enough. And that can like actually translate into very physical issues. Even jaw issues or throat issues can relate to your throat chakra, which is like if you feel like you haven't been able to speak up or speak how you feel, if you suppressing things, you're like, "Oh, I wanna say this, but I don't feel confident enough, or I don't feel like I have the space to with maybe people at your company, or, like, I don't feel safe enough to speak out." That can really translate into, like, tightness in the jaw, things like that. And I would say another very common one for people are, like, digestive issues, tummy issues. Yeah, and so that can also be really related to your sacral chakra, which is a place of, like, creativity and sexual power, and I don't mean that, like, we don't need to bring it, don't call HR, but overall, that can also be related to, like, how powerful do you feel and how, like, even in your womb, like, what are you birthing? What are you expressing out into the world? What are you, like, creating? And if you feel like your creativity is suppressed, if you feel, like, "What am I even doing here?" Like, that can actually also create digest or even, like, feelings of, "Do other people like me? Do I feel safe enough? Do I feel" not even, like, the self-worth, but more around, like, external validation and, like, connection with other people. And so it's really interesting to see where those energetic things show up in our bodies and what that can tell us about our levels of stress and also, like, the roots of stress.
That is so interesting. I
And
mean, I've always heard about chakras, but I never really knew, like, the background or the thank you for explaining that. How did you get into that?
yeah, so I mean, I am in when I was living in New York City, I was starting to get into some of this stuff. I've read tarot for about 15 years, which I think is actually a really people think that tarot is, like, very woo-woo or, like, reading the future. It's not. It's actually just a set of archetypes. Tarot even I had someone who was like, "I can't believe that you read tarot at your boyfriend's bar." Like, it's supposed to be a sacred ritual, and I was like, "Okay, well, actually, my boyfriend is Italian, and tarot was created as a card game for the Italian aristocracy to be played at parties." So, honestly, I am absolutely honoring the roots of, like, sacred Italian parties by reading it at my boyfriend's Italian bar. So, but overall, I started getting into tarot, and, like, it really helped me because I could kinda just see, like, it's essentially the human experience. So, even for example, when I'm like I think sometimes we treat our growth path as very linear. It's a very masculine also our society is masculine, so it makes sense, but, like, we treat ourselves like if I dip here or, like, pivot or, like, have to start over, I'm failing. And the tarot is really interesting because death is actually so the death card, everyone's afraid of death, like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die." No, I pulled the death card as my card of the year one year, and it basically that year, I quit my job and started a company. I left New York City and started traveling the world and then ended up in Mexico City, which was one of my goals living abroad since I was a little girl. I ended a 6-year relationship that was not working. I ended up, being single for 2 years, healing my soul, and then finding now my soulmate. And so I think, like, it's really taught me that even, like, these big endings are more cyclical. It's like one door closes so that bigger, more beautiful doors can open. But when it comes to the energy, tarot is very mental. I really struggled until I burned out and realized I'd been dissociating for like for 2 decades. So I started, like, coming back into my body. And, honestly, I did a lot of, like, I mean, I talk about the psychedelics on on my LinkedIn. Psychedelics were a really big help, and I think a lot of I mean, like, let's be real, a lot of tech people are very interested and open to psychedelics, but those are also very mental. So I started working with, somatic therapy, but there's actually a book called Anatomy of Spirit, which, also is, like, a very big gateway for me, which actually just maps how can we understand what we feel in our body and how that can be a mirror to what's happening in our soul. And it's hard because so many of us in tech are taught to dissociate from pain, to dissociate from any sense of, like, our bodies. It's like, "No pain, no gain," and I need to hustle harder. I just need to, like, work harder to show I'm committed and to, like, if I wanna achieve these massive things. I need to push my body to the extremes. And I broke. I mean, I hear stories every day, people who, like, ended up in the hospital from burnout. And ironic, when you actually study burnout, it can take you 3 to 5 years to recover. By the way, I'm on year 5. And I was like, "No, I think I'm good, I'm good, I'm good." No, it has taken 5 years to fully recover and to, like, truly transform the way that I worked. I'm actually grateful for burning out because I don't think that I would have changed if I had not had such a radical breakdown. Like, it's led to some of the biggest breakthroughs in my entire life, but I can completely see this, like, alternate universe where I just continue killing myself and crushing my soul and defining myself and my identity by how many hours I worked, how many promotions I got, how many zeros were in my paycheck, how many, like, big names were in front of my title, director, VP, president, da da, you know? So I'm grateful for that, but yeah, it's like people are always like, "Oh, wow, like, how'd you get into this?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, total breakdown, total burnout," and then just, like, I did not have an option.
And honestly, that's truly honest.
But bringing it full circle to what you said earlier, it's okay to not be okay. I think this goes so much deeper in in SaaS cultures because, for example, one of the big challenges. So I feel like there's like in as a tech consultant in sales or like especially in like sales training, there's really like two big types of trainers. Prospecting and mid-funnel, right? You're either like helping people get leads or you're helping them win them. Those are honestly the two jobs in sales. And it's hard because if you're a prospecting trainer, it's a little easier for people to be like, "Hey, we just don't have enough leads. We just need to get more leads," you know? And they're kind of like, okay, it's easy to admit that like, okay, our messaging kind of sucks. Like we might not have the right systems in place. Deliverability is an issue. We can fix that easily. And our messaging just like, yeah, we're open to better messaging, right? But for mid-funnel, it's a little harder because I think that, like, tech is not always the most vulnerable or safe space, and it's really hard because, like, with prospecting, you're like, "Hey, I just, like, don't have enough quality leads," but once you explore what's wrong with sales in the mid-funnel, it could be very vulnerable because, sometimes I have to tell people, "Hey, so, your entire pipeline, probably 60% of it is garbage." And, like, that is really hard, you know? And so it's like, I feel like a lot of people put these just like, "Oh, let's just do a training. Let's just do a training. Let's just do a training," instead of, like, being really open and honest. And I'm talking about kind of a macro leadership perspective from an executive perspective. It can be really challenging, especially there's so much pressure on executives. They don't have that much time, literally from an average tenure perspective to fix things, you know? So it's really easy to kind of like, let's just do a training. Let's just like fix this one little thing when it's like the deep systemic thing is that you're not honest with yourself. But even on a micro scale, one of the biggest things I hear from salespeople is like, especially top performers, is that they're not getting any feedback. So it's like, how can you know how to grow? How do you know how to improve when you're asking, "Hey, I wanna be better," but most of the time, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times in your career, "Don't worry, you're doing fine, just, like, keep doing what you're doing," and you're like, "Okay, cool, but, how is that helping me get better? Just, like, do more of what you're already doing," and especially as a top performer because at that point, you might have actually outgrown your manager and how you might know better than them. So it's really challenging when, like, it's okay to not be okay. Just, like, the level of transparency and, like, safe spaces for transparency are so lacking that a lot of people don't know how to grow, and especially when you the weird thing for me is that when people are like, "Oh, we're doing pretty well. These are, like, best practices in place," and I was like, "Okay, well, the average win rate in SaaS is actually like 21%. So if you're calling that like a best practice, then like I don't know what to tell you, like usually like doing well, so like even doing better than okay is like a 30% win rate, and I'm like, "Okay, so you're okay losing 70% of the deals that you're working on," right? And I think, like, being okay with not being okay, like, we need to talk about this at an industry level. Are we okay losing 80% of our deals and, like, calling that good? And then having, like, "I wanna be better," or, like, "This is a best practice," is just being, like, a little bit better, you know? But I think in order to do that, we have to be vulnerable. We have to be open to feedback. We have to like really be honest with ourselves. And we need to have conversations that don't just kind of say, "Oh yeah, we're doing really well. We're like executing on all our projects." Da 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 da. Or like, but we need to just be okay like with the shadow. It's almost like the shadow, like the negative aspects of like what's not working, and just being like brutally honest. Do you see a
Mm.
lot of that?
Yeah, I have. So I started this podcast about a year and a half ago, and almost not every single leader, but most
Mhm.
essentially were like, I mean, because you going back, to that LinkedIn veneer, I heard stories about people going to mental hospitals, losing
Yeah.
children, having stillbirths, almost losing their wives. Like, I mean, some real serious shit. Opening up about therapy, mental illness. Oh, sorry, go ahead. What were you
The
saying?
stuff that you don't see on LinkedIn very often.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, like they had to put on a face because they had clients or they were the CEO of X company or they had a big presentation or, like a keynote speech and they just had to, like put on the face. And I think our society normalizes that. It's like you can be crying outside because you ended a 6-year relationship and then you go inside and you're like, "Hi." I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible that we have to do that.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes it's required. I As you were talking, I was like, "Okay, cue Taylor Swift, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart," you know? Sometimes it's required, sometimes, you have to push through it, but what I see as the bigger issue and, like, to be fair, I mean, I can also argue a million times that we're like, we should oh my gosh, I mean, I love the subreddit LinkedIn Lunatics, and, like, it is my dream one day to end up on it. I keep trying, but that is my 2026 goal is to, like, end up on LinkedIn Lunatics, but you see posts like, "I took a client" I this is a real post I saw. "I took a client call from the hospital after like, an hour after giving birth," and I'm like, "Wait, what? Is this what we are normalizing and glorifying? Like, this is insane." And I think that, like, there's all these, very big examples, but for me, it was a slippery slope of, like, justifying it one time and being like, "Okay, like, sometimes it's required, I have a big deal and I just need to do this one call." But then it starts it's 2 calls, and it's not it's actually then kind of like working through a vacation and feeling like you have to be on Slack and then realizing that you're basically just working from a remote location. And like I did that for a year and like that was great. But if you're actually, trying to be on vacation, these things are like really build up and can become so toxic with like incredibly real and severe consequences that can impact our bodies, our careers for years. And so I think like a lot of people have those moments where they make the exception and then it just becomes the norm. And we literally are giving ourselves no time to rest and recover. And we're glorifying that as like working through the pain and being committed. But we're also ignoring like basic health,
Basic
basic
humanity.
psychology.
Yeah.
Like, ironically, with, like, the age of AI, I love AI. I was just speaking on a podcast about how, like, I think that, the best sellers are going to be the ones that embrace AI. However, the issue is that we are treating our bodies like robots, and our bodies literally cannot keep up and cannot act like robots. And if I feel like the irony is that a lot of times we do it because we're like, oh, I just want to I just want to, get to the next promotion as quickly as possible. But we're not realizing that if we do burn out, it can literally cost us 3 to 5 years in productivity, in mental health, all of this money spent, and like ironically, it can actually severely impact our careers in a very negative way and our health. I mean, I've heard of people in their 30s having heart attacks, going to the hospital from burnout. So, and those are severe examples, but even for me, I didn't have that, but it I could not focus. I had like even when I would try to push myself to work harder, I would have this flare of stress in my shoulders, like, my body was, like, screaming, like, "Please, no, I can't do this again," you know? So, like, people don't talk about that. People don't talk about they're like, "Oh, yeah, I, like, burned out, whatever," and I'm like, "Okay, cool," but, like, it's a years-long process, and if you're trying to actually achieve sustainable results and, like, to get ahead in your career, the ironic part is that the best way to do that is to actually focus on sustainability, on regulation, on rest, and it is easy for people to, like, look at certain people's lives on LinkedIn and, like, even for me, like, "Oh, you live in Mexico, you own your own company, you're in your 30s, wow," and to be like, "Wow, you have so much control, you don't have to, like, work, 1,000,000 hours per week," and to be fair, I, like, think this is also what a lot of people don't talk about is that, like, I did gain so much from those years of, like, being a hustler, but now I've realized, like, I'm addicted to healthy hustle now. And finding, like realizing that, like, you can still hustle, but you can do it in a more sustainable way. I'm not saying that you have to, like, move to Bali and, like, quit corporate jobs and completely and, like, I did used to dream about that. I was like, whenever I would get really stressed, I was like, "I'm just going to move to Bali and become a yoga instructor," even though I did not have a regular yoga practice. Like, I think that also is a sign for me when I'm, like, dreaming of, like, radically changing my life. I'm like, "Okay, Meg, maybe you need to, like, take a nap." But you can still hustle, but in a much more healthy and holistic way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can you give me an example of a non-Bali yoga instructor experience of healthy hustle?
Yes. So a lot of the work that I do with my salespeople, it actually is kind of 3 levels. Because a lot of people come to me and they're like, I would like to, know how to build better business cases. I'm like, love that. I love a business case refresh. I love prospecting messaging and helping people sound more human. But a lot of the work that I do with people that radically shifts not only like one experience, like, oh, I'm going to make this cold call better, but truly shapes who they are, how they work, etc. It starts at a much higher level. It actually starts with your intention. And so even like right now is a really good time for this. So instead of just focusing on like, okay, I want to get better at sales and like make my job easier, I'm going to go buy this business case template, you know? It has to be bigger than that. So for me, I start with intentions and I'm like holding my hand over my head because I'm like it really starts with even like your mind and your spirit. And so even like a tactical exercise, I was like, okay, how do you want to operate next year? And I actually do this exercise with my reps, especially right now, where I'm like, okay, like what's working, what's not working? How do you want to show up? What is like important to you? What are your values that you want to bring into the next year? And so even one of my clients, he's in enterprise sales, but he kind of has had a very similar journey to ours where he's like, I've realized that like what got me here was hustle. And it might not be the answer moving ahead. And so I was like, okay, are you ready to like release that like hustle mindset? Maybe we can go into something like an archetype more like the sage who's like very focused on wisdom. And he's like, "Honestly, I don't think I'm ready to give that up." So I was like, okay, cool. Because he has a little bit more of the hero archetype where he like busts down doors, he gets shit done for his family, for his friends, for his clients. He shows up in this very beautiful way of like helping, serving, getting stuff done, and being the person. He's like very proud of that, you know? So I was like, we don't have to become a different person. But for him, we actually chose this intention and this like kind of archetype of the heart-centric hero. So it is someone who can show up, knock down doors, save babies from burning buildings, you know? But what would it look like for him to operate more from his heart and from a compassionate perspective instead of like, I just need to do this. I need like almost like from a desperation, from a frustration. And how can he bring more of that compassion to his clients? And so even like just operating from that core value, that core archetype and like choosing something that feels very specific to you. Even one of my clients, I think my favorite, all of my clients are my favorite, but this one mantra that my client had a few years ago was just so beautiful. It was be authentic, be present, be slow. He was someone who, like, literally ex-military dude, and he actually has a book about it where he writes about how even, like, in the military, if you go fast, you could kill someone. But he's like, "I think I've lost that because the speed of tech is so crazy," and so having that mantra, I think he operated out of it for, like, 2 years, helped him show up differently every single day. So even with business cases, it's like you can change your business case, you can use a template, but when you come at every single interaction, every single resource that you build for your customers, every single call that you have, instead of being like, "I'm gonna use this new cold call script," being like, "I'm gonna be slow, I'm gonna be intentional, I'm gonna be authentic, I'm gonna be present." That's very different. And so choosing the intention, and then we actually do kind of map it down to different mindsets. So how does that intention change the way that you approach calls? And then how does that translate into every single tactic? So not thinking of tactics as like all of these separate projects. How can I, change every single thing in my sales process to something that aligns with my intentions? So for him, it was like very tactical things like before each call, he would take 3 breaths. He would also change the intention of the call instead of like focusing on an agenda where it's like, okay, I'm gonna like, cover this and then I'm gonna cover the demo and then I'm gonna do this, right? Like we've heard these calls, we hear them every day. His goal was to find out if they were a good fit, if he could help them, and if it should move forward, if there was interest, right? So just opening it up. And also for him, so we actually covered be authentic, be present, be slow. So even like slowing down your nervous system through breathing on the authenticity piece. I actually love this because like this client used to be so buttoned up, like military. He looked like military. He looked like a stock photo. I'm like making fun of him, teasing him, but he looked like a stock photo of a salesperson. And like after a year of working together, he had like grew his hair out, and he had like his banjo in the background of his of the the space that he would take calls from, and he would talk about music with his clients. So that authenticity and even just the presence, he was like, I used to be a robot because I was so focusing on talk tracks on calls instead of being present and hearing what they were saying and like noticing if they were like, they might be saying yes, but their body might be saying no. And so I think those things, like the intention truly impacts all of the tactics. And for me, I think a lot of sales trainers, a lot of sales people, we just focus on the tactics and like then we wonder, it's almost like an assembly line of like the sales process, and then we will wonder why we're like, this is really boring. I don't enjoy this at all. So for me it really starts with the intentions, and like that can be so much more powerful, and it can like change the entire energy that you show up with on sales calls.
I love that. That's awesome.
This is also something I just don't understand how people like I'm a sales coach and I'm a little biased, but like I have a million coaches. So, anyone who like looks at my LinkedIn is like, wow, I really like her content. Yeah, it is very formulaic, and, like, it is after working with a coach, and I try really hard, but he taught me, like, there's 3 types of content, and it just made everything easier. So, I think a lot of I was posting too much value content, which is, "This is how to improve your discovery calls. This is how to X," right? What we want I was like, "I want people to read this stuff. I want you to, like, work with me," right? But I was posting way too much of that, and that's gonna get the lowest engagement, no matter how good it is, honestly. There are some people that can do that every single day. I'm not one of them, okay? It's not that good. But there's also 2 other types that now I focus on more that are more top of funnel and mid funnel. So for top of funnel, I call this growth content, and my shower thoughts slap. Slap. Like, my phone actually just died, and I went outside for a walk, and I was like, "No! I have 3 ideas for silly content." Like, one of them is, like, oh gosh, 15 reasons why matcha is superior to coffee. That is one. 5 ways to make your day better, and I'm like, literally just, like, look upward at the sky. Like, if you can't touch grass, just, like, look at some butterflies. But I literally have, like, all these silly thoughts that come to mind, and, I mean, some of my most viral posts are, like, they're very silly. Like, one of them was, like, my uncle telling me that I needed to, like, be less open on LinkedIn. I mean, I got, like, 1,500 likes. People are like, "Uncle Bill." Everyone has an Uncle Bill, you know? But, like, those things, people wanna connect with humans. People want the silly. They don't want to feel like they're in a boardroom because they're in a boardroom every day, you know? They can read a book if they want growth content or sorry, the all of
That's a
the
good
sales
point.
content,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think, like, that has been really helpful me, and I literally call those shower thoughts because 'cause I'm like, just like the growth content, like, what are fun things that can just make people feel like they know you? And then outside of that, there's another type, which is brand content. This is one that I felt very uncomfortable sharing, but it's more so about, like, when you study parasocial relationships and, like, literally building trust, the easiest psychological way of building trust with another human being is to show your face and to show your hands. Selfies, I was so opposed to doing and now, like, I feel like everyone's like, "Oh my god, you're" like, someone actually, like, mentioned it was like, "Ugh, why does everyone just post, like, matcha selfies?" And I was like, "Okay, back off. The selfies work. I'm not just posting selfies because 'cause I'm a narcissist." No, it's deep psychological reasons, and so I think that's weird where I was like, "No one wants to know about this. No one wants to know that, like, that I'm, like, on a matcha walk to, like, but they're like, "I do." So I post a lot about I actually kind of have a few saved on. I was like, I post about my cat a lot. I always post my little matcha walk and selfies, and I post, about, like, living in Mexico, and so even just, like, little posts like that to get people to experience you and, like, bringing it full circle from content to sales, I will just say, like, I think that all of this shows that, like, a lot of us kind of, like even the way we build decks and presentations, we're so afraid of showing ourselves because 'cause we're like, "No one wants to know that I'm a human." What do you I'm saying this very sarcastically because, like, do you think people want to talk to robots? Like, if I did, I would just, like, use Google, you know? But I think we're so afraid of showing ourselves and opening ourselves up, but that truly and even the silly things like making a joke or like having small talk, you're like, "I hate small talk." Okay, well, like, maybe not everyone does. Maybe some people actually enjoy being human, but I think, like, the same things that work for content work in sales as well.
So this was awesome. I know that you're on
Yes.
LinkedIn, but would love to hear from you. If anyone has any questions or wants to email you or kind of get in touch with you, the best way.
Yeah, so definitely the easiest way to connect with me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I am addicted to it. I live on it. I'm the only person with my name on LinkedIn, so easy to find me. I also, feel free to send me a DM. I also have a newsletter called Letters to My Burned Out Self. Also, feel free if you like read it and you're like, wow, this touched my soul. You can feel free to send me a DM. I know they're like very sensitive, very soulful topics. And then also if you're a salesperson or a sales team that would like to really level up and like, reach top levels of performance, but also have a very rich life outside of it. And if any of these topics resonated, I do also have a free booking link to book a sales coaching consult. So I have a few more spots open for 2026 and always looking for really soulful clients.
Awesome. Well, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for Revenue Mind, where we cut the BS and spotlight mental health and revenue leadership. I'm Jolie, reminding you your mindset is your competitive edge. Thanks for listening. See you next time.